The sky was painted with soft shades of gold as the sun began dipping behind the tall city buildings. The air carried the faint chill of early evening, mixed with the hum of traffic and the chatter of people heading home. In a penthouse overlooking the entire skyline stood Adrian Wolfe, the young millionaire known for his ruthless business strategies, quiet lifestyle, and complete disinterest in romance. People admired him, envied him, feared him, but no one really knew him. Tonight, however, he was dressed in a crisp black suit, looking at his reflection in the mirror longer than usual, adjusting his tie for the fourth time. He had agreed, reluctantly, to go on a blind date set up by his best friend, Lucas. Adrian never did blind dates, but after years of drowning in work, something inside him whispered that maybe he should try. He glanced down at the message on his phone. Her name is Maya. Be nice for once. He allowed a tiny smirk before pocketing the phone and walking toward the elevator. His driver waited downstairs with the car polished, ready to take him to the upscale restaurant where the date was supposed to happen. Adrian didn't know why he cared enough to feel nervous, but he did. The city lights blurred outside the window as the car moved, and his mind drifted to endless possibilities. Maybe she'd be boring, maybe she'd talk too much, maybe this entire thing was a waste of time. Still, he was going. He reached the restaurant 5 minutes early, which was rare for someone known to be fashionably late. The hostess greeted him warmly, guiding him to a private table decorated with a single candle and a small vase of white lilies. He sat, adjusting his cuffs as he waited. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes, 20. The candle flickered, mocking him. He checked his phone again. Nothing. No message, no call. Another 10 minutes slipped by, and a quiet, unwelcome feeling began creeping into his chest. Finally, his phone buzzed. I'm so sorry. I can't make it. Something happened. I shouldn't have agreed to this. Please forgive me. Maya. Adrian stared at the message for a long time. Cancelled. At the last minute, something tugged at his pride, but strangely, the bigger sensation was curiosity. What happened? Was she hurt, or was this just another person intimidated by his reputation? He took a deep breath, thanked the hostess, and left the restaurant. The evening air felt colder now, heavier. His driver opened the door, but Adrian shook his head. I'll walk, he said. He walked aimlessly through the city streets, hands in his pockets, trying to clear his head. He wasn't angry, only unsettled. The date was supposed to distract him from the loneliness he had carefully buried under layers of business meetings and endless success. Instead, it left him feeling more aware of it. He kept walking until he reached the entrance of the Central Park. The lamps along the pathway glowed softly, and the wind rustled through the trees like a whisper. He stepped inside. The park was quiet, painted with the colors of dusk. Birds chirped faintly, children's laughter echoed from a distance, and somewhere, water trickled from a fountain. As he walked along the path, he noticed a figure sitting on a bench under a tree. A girl, her shoulders trembling slightly, her hands covering her face. Adrian wouldn't usually stop. He wasn't the kind of man who approached strangers, but something about her posture made him pause. There was a raw sadness in the way her body curled inward, as if she was trying to hide from the world. He took a step closer, and then another. As he approached, he saw her dress, a simple pale blue one, slightly wrinkled from the way she had been gripping it. Her heels were kicked off beside the bench, her toes curled into the grass. When he finally stood close enough, she lifted her head abruptly, startled. Her eyes were red from crying, mascara slightly smudged, but even then, her face had a softness that made him pause. I'm sorry, he said quietly, lowering his voice. I didn't mean to frighten you. She looked at him for a moment, confusion flickering across her features. Adrian was used to being recognized everywhere, restaurants, events, magazines, but she looked as if she had no idea who he was, which somehow felt refreshing. I'm fine, she whispered, wiping her cheeks quickly. You can go. I don't want to bother anyone. You're not bothering me, he replied, surprising himself at how gentle his voice sounded. You look like you could use someone to talk to. She hesitated, her gaze shifting to the ground. I ruined everything, she said softly. This whole day, my confidence, my peace, everything just collapsed. Adrian felt something tighten in his chest. Do you want to talk about it? For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she sighed, and the words spilled out. I was supposed to meet someone tonight. A blind date. I was excited but also terrified. And then, something happened before I even reached the restaurant. Something that made me feel like I didn't deserve to be there. Adrian froze. Her voice shook as she continued. My ex showed up out of nowhere. He said awful things. Told me I wasn't good enough for anyone. That I'd embarrass myself. And suddenly I just couldn't go. I didn't want a stranger to see me like this. Adrian's jaw clenched. Maya. This was her. He sat down beside her slowly. You don't have to listen to someone who hurt you. She looked at him, eyes glistening. Why are you being so kind? You don't even know me. Adrian inhaled deeply. Maybe I was supposed to. She blinked, surprised. I don't understand. He turned slightly so he could face her directly. My name is Adrian, he said quietly. I was supposed to meet someone tonight too. Her breath caught as realization hit. No way. Yes, he said softly. I'm the one you were supposed to meet. Her face flushed with embarrassment, horror, guilt. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to waste your time. I should have told you earlier. I shouldn't have let my fears. Maya, he interrupted gently, you didn't waste my time. She looked away, tears gathering again. I didn't want you to see me crying. But I did, he said, and I'm still here. She swallowed hard. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not with pity, not with judgment, but with steady warmth. The silence between them felt strangely comforting. After a moment, Adrian stood up and held out his hand. Come walk with me, he said. She hesitated, then slowly slid her hand into his. The touch was soft but trembling, as if she was still unsure whether she deserved kindness. They walked along the path quietly, the sound of leaves crunching beneath their feet. For the first time in years, Adrian didn't feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. Instead, he felt something lighter, something real. They reached the small bridge overlooking the pond. Lanterns reflected softly on the water, creating a shimmering path of light. Adrian leaned on the railing, glancing at her. You know, he said, I almost left the restaurant angry. But then I thought maybe something really happened. I'm glad I decided to walk. She gave him a fragile smile. I'm glad you did too. He studied her carefully. Not the makeup, not the dress, but the quiet resilience in her eyes. That guy who talked to you before the date, he said slowly, he doesn't get to define you. You don't even know what he said, she whispered. I don't need to, he replied. I can see who you are without hearing any of it. Maya looked at him, startled by the honesty of his words. They talked for a long time. About her dreams of becoming a teacher, his childhood of growing up in a strict household, the things they feared, the things they hoped for. It was strange how easily their stories intertwined, like two wandering threads finally meeting. Hours passed without either of them noticing. The night grew deeper, quieter, softer. When Maya finally shivered slightly from the cold, Adrian shrugged off his coat and draped it gently around her shoulders. You don't have to, she began. I want to, he interrupted. She hugged the coat, warmth settling into her bones. I'm still sorry about earlier. I shouldn't have canceled. He shook his head. If you hadn't, we wouldn't be here. And I like here. Her breath hitched at his sincerity. They continued walking until they reached the entrance of the park again. Maya lifted her gaze to him. Adrian, thank you for not giving up on the night. I should be thanking you, he said quietly. You reminded me what it feels like to be human. She laughed softly, and the sound felt like a melody he didn't know he had been craving. He hesitated before speaking again. Can I see you tomorrow? She bit her lip nervously. You really want to? Yes, he said simply. I really do. She nodded slowly, hope flickering in her eyes. Then, yes, Adrian smiled. A real, genuine smile. Something rare. He walked her to the street, called her a ride, and waited until she was safely inside the car. As the vehicle pulled away, she looked back through the window, and he raised a hand in a small wave. She smiled back, warmth blooming in her chest. When the car disappeared around the corner, Adrian finally let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He felt different, lighter. As he walked back to his penthouse, the night air didn't feel cold anymore. It felt filled with possibility. And somewhere across the city, Maya leaned her head against the car window, holding his coat tightly around her, realizing that a night that began in tears had turned into something she never expected. Everything had changed the moment he found her crying in the park.